Hello class, my name is Braden Anderson and I'll be giving my discussion 2 on Squanto, A Warrior's Tale. Squanto begins set in the early 1600s, and it begins with rocky beginnings. A young Native American man named Squanto um, finds himself face to face with English expansionism, and everything changes when the settlers arrive, and he's tragically taken captive and brought to England. There he finds himself in a new world and longing for his homeland. He actually ends up finding a way to escape, where he then shipwrecks and is taken in by monks in the area. This is a very important development in the film because here he learns the English way of life. He learns English language. He learns high society in the European way of life, which then he is able to return home and act as the mediator between two different types of people. And he then finds his Native American tribe, his natural tribe, decimated, and life just completely different there, and where he then decides he's going to advocate for peace in the end. Eric Foner's Give Me Liberty has something to say about this, where in chapter 1, it explains how European society actually looked down on the natives. Their absolute freedom way of life, as they called it, was actually something that they didn't look down upon. They looked as a sort of an abuse of liberty, something that they didn't believe was conducive to virtue, in contrast to their European way of life. Which brings us to my scene of choice, the Thanksgiving scene at the end of the film. Here we see everything ends in unity and harmony. Squanto's speech of wisdom sort of tells us what could have been, what could have existed between two peoples, and the past is actually put behind them. All that danger, all that stress, all that war and strife is put behind them with forgiveness, and they share a meal together. They make peace, and Squanto sort of puts forward this idea of, we're going to be one people. In the context of Nora's article, she actually puts forth a very interesting idea of, history versus memory. And the conquest of eradication of memory by history is put forth sort of this idea in the article, that Nora claims that history is just a reconstruction. It's always incomplete to a sense. And we can see this in the end scene of the film, where we kind of have just a good feel-good ending to the film. It kind of shows us what we ought to do, and the story shows us the principle of how we should act, because we get that from film, we get that from history. This something can be learned and taken away from the story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. The story is kind of exasperated in certain areas to communicate a motive. Um, and this is a lot different than memory. Memory kind of, as Nora puts it, is life, born by living societies founded in its name. And so memory and history, far from being synonymous, appear now in fundamental opposition. We can actually know the treaty was broken in 1675, and the tribes ended up being driven from their homelands. And the history, the movie, the film doesn't necessarily communicate that in the story, not in the characters that we see. Obviously, it can't be a 7-hour movie; it has to end somewhere. And so, but the film has a certain feel to it because of that ending. And so the memory is different, and it kind of shows us a memory of what really kind of went on, what really happened. And what's interesting to me, and I'd be excited to kind of maybe learn more about this as time goes on, how do we distinguish, how do we distinguish the difference between something that we can just call history and know this happened, and and memory? Because it seems to me that sometimes memory can be very much just people calling it history and leaning on it. So that's interesting to me. But that's it. Yeah, thank you guys.